Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're watching this. Um, I'll call this one the study suggestions for exam one. So I'm going to walk through a few things what you should be doing in preparation. Now, this coming Tuesday, we will have a review, and this will get you prepared. You should hopefully have completed all these things by Tuesday. So first of all, our first exam is coming up. It's going to have 12 multiple choice questions. So for those, you will just need to choose the right answers. Some have A, B, C, D. There's a few with that go through E, and there's one that goes through F. So those many different choices select the right answer. There are two short answer ones, and what that means is you just have to provide a little bit of reasoning and generally having the answer in a sentence describing what's going on. And then there are three free response problems. So you're given a question, you need to show all your work, and that'll be down here, and show how you got to those solutions with using the method. So if it says algebraically, you need to do it algebraically. Yes, you can use your graphing calculator to assist you, but you also need to do the algebraic steps. So to break down, multiple choice are 5 points each. 5 times 12 is 60. So out of 100 points, that's 60%. Two short answers are also 5 points each. So that's 10%. And then the free response, 10 points each, so that's 30%. 30, 10 is 40, plus 6, there's your 100% of your test. And again, on the free response, work must be shown to obtain credit. Just a correct answer gets you some, but you need to show how you got there. The majority of the points are for your work. And if your answer is incorrect, so say on the multiple choice you got the right, if you show some partial, some work, you may be able to earn some partial credit if we can see, oh, you're on the right track, but made a calculation error somewhere. 2 plus 2 is 5 or something like that. Okay. The type of calculators, this was in the syllabus, you cannot use the CAS, right? Those do the symbolic algebra for you, but every other graphing calculator is available, and I'll demonstrate a few. So here's our step-by-step. So all along you should have been working on the homework from 1.1 to 2.6. We went over 2.6 this week on Thursday, so it's understandable, but that you would still be working on it possibly on this Sunday. However, you should be getting close to finishing it up. There may be some few questions that you might still be struggling with. That's okay. You could move on to 2, but the key part to understanding what we're doing is in the homework. So that's where you should be learning everything. And that's why it's important to stay up. Even though the due dates, I have them all moved up until the test date, it's best to have them all done. You can't say, oh, well, they're due later on, so I'll just get to them Wednesday, right? We got our test on Thursday, so if you haven't gotten to these, you've got some work ahead of you, and I would spend your time today, Monday, and again, we need you to get through all of this by Tuesday, so then you can spend the more time reviewing and do well. Once a homework is relatively complete, again, a few ones is okay, but there is 2 reviews. And I would put the exam, the one in my lab, there's an exam review. I would put that along with the homework. So if you should have completed that along with the homework, gives you an overview of everything. Additionally, this one is what you're going to want to start focusing, especially because regardless of everything else, if you can at least have the exam 1 review that is in Canvas, have that completed. And what I mean is have worked through it completely. If you don't understand something, well, there is a solution guide. to help you go through it, and I'll show you those things right here. So this is the PDF with the exam review. There's 16 questions. You could almost look at it. It's a little bit shy of the number of questions, but the types of questions, you will be just fine. These are the types of questions that you could see on the test. Yeah, similar. Okay, so quadratics, it's telling you should know how to do all these things. Find vertex, axis of symmetry, y-intercept, x-intercepts. Again, there is a detailed solution guide, so I can work through some of these on Tuesday, but Tuesday we're limited to just the class time that we have. So please do work through these. Take a look at the solution guide, which I have over here. So which was that? That was question 10. So you could come down to 10 and you see a fairly detailed way of working through the problems. And they're color coded and highlighted. So that's all provided here in the solution guide. And it gives a model for, what kind of work should I show? Well, enough so somebody could understand what you're doing. And that's what the professor has done here, is to try to show enough work so that anyone who's not understanding can understand. Okay, so even on this one, 11, you come up with two answers, but it says why one of the answers is not relevant, right? So it's got such detail in here, even and odds. These are all the things that you need. Okay, but be able to know everything backwards and forwards. If it asks about domain, also be able to find the range. Sometimes there's a question here, yeah, domain and range of these functions of each. So here you have to find the inverse function, and then you have to find the domain and range. And remember, these functions here, when you find their inverse, the domain and range switch. So the original domain of this one becomes the range of the inverse, so forth and so on. Okay, so this will give you a very thorough understanding of what you need to do. And then there's shorter answers down here, but there's explanations. Oops, well, this is in the review itself. It provides the answers, the solutions, more detail, but then there's also the answers down here, briefer answers, but you can access them either way. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm going to focus on, because we need to narrow down, get you ready for, let's see how many questions we have. We have 12 plus 2 is 14 plus 3 is 17 questions. Okay, so we will get there. You should be using a graphing calculator all along. You need to know how to use the one that you're using. I'm going to demonstrate a problem. Again, if you're okay with your graphing calculator, if you want to head off and work on things, that's fine. I'm going to demonstrate a problem from the review in my lab. Again, because the one in Canvas, we provide the solution guide, but my lab, I'm going to show you some other options for that, okay? Other things you can do. What you want to do, before I get to that though, let me show you one more resource. That's the one I'm going to show you. Where is it? Here we go. We'll go to here. So this is my lab, the student view. So again, you should have gone through all the homework through 2.6. Here's our exam review. That's what you're responsible for this exam. And again, they should be done. Don't worry, I can wait till the 17th. I have put them off. So there's no pressure on you as far as that part, but Thursday is our exam. There is an ebook, so e-text content. So let's say you're struggling with 1.8. I think that was inverse functions. So we go to the contents. Is this the one I want? Okay, yeah, I think if I double check, So 1.8 would be in chapter 1. I'm going to go there. You can choose the one you're having problems with. There's additional problems in here in the mid-chapter checkup and the end of chapter if you want. But again, if you're struggling with something like, say, inverse functions, you go here. There are video presentations here. So I can click here, and then if I'm having problems finding the inverse of a function, there's a 7-minute video I can watch. There's this one about horizontal line tests. Incidentally, there's also all the lectures have been recorded, and so if you either missed them or need more review, you can watch those. Again, those are about an hour and 15 minutes each, but those are in Canvas. Okay, so, but just know there's also additional videos in here, and there's somebody in here. I've got the sound turned off, but she's going to walk you through finding the inverse, again, from the textbook. So you've got some examples in here of how to do that. Okay, so that's available to you. So if I can do that, yeah. We could view the e-text. We don't have a study plan set up, so at least I couldn't find anything. They show basically everything rather than having it narrowed down. But we have the assignments. But here's the textbook itself. So this... Unknown caller. Sorry about that. So anyway, here is the textbook, and you can page through it looking at examples. And again, they're going to show you what an inverse function is with some colors, and how do you verifying inverse functions. So there's additional resources here. This is what we did in class. How do we find the inverse if we don't know what it is? We take the original equation. We replace f of x with y. We did that. We change x and y. So where we see an x, we put a y. Where we see a y, we put an x. Then we solve for y, and that's going to give us the inverse. Okay, so the steps are here. There's some examples here. And again, it's that way for every other thing. If you, in working through the review, you hit on something, well, say you hit on a question that you struggled with, and you looked at the solution guide to figure out how to do it. Well, that's great, but what you need to do is see a question that you don't have a solution guide for and work through it, because that's what you're going to see on the exam. You won't see the question from the review on the exam. You'll see one like it, but different. So be able to work these additional ones. Here's examples, and then like every textbook, there, as we keep going, there will be some homework problems. So these would be in addition to that you could work in addition to the homework problems that are assigned, right? So here's an exercise set. Maybe choose one that's similar but different to the one in the review, and you can work through it. You'll find, like most textbooks, there is a solution. There's solutions at the back of the textbook. You've got notebooks. You can do all this stuff, but they will have answers to usually it's the odds, but could be the evens. I haven't gone that far, so I'm just going to go through. But do explore it. Do explore your textbook. You've paid for it. So, and again, you don't have to work the problems that we haven't done, but look for similar type problems. And let's see. I'm going to have to go here, table of contents, and let's see. Summary, review, and tests. Review exercises. There's practice tests, a chapter 1 test. Sometimes it's all the way to the end, right? So let's go to the end. Answers to selected exercises, just like a lot of textbooks, right? So we go here, and we're going to have to navigate to chapter 1, which is right there, and get to chapter 1.8, and we'll see the answers to all the odd problems. That might be a good review. Look at one and see if you can get the answers, or maybe look at the answers, right? however it works for you. But this is a great resource. You do have this textbook, this e-textbook. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to work through this one a little bit. Again, on the exam, we're limited on time to 50 minutes because all the other classes that are Monday, Wednesday, Friday are limited to 50 minutes. So while it says to use the rational zero theorem or Descartes' rule of signs and such, remember this is an x to the fourth. To find the zeros, we had these two items, but it also says, and possibly the graph of graphing. I wouldn't say possibly, I would say definitely let's use the graph because that's going to be easier to spot. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my graphing calculator. Here we go. Let me move this over. There we go. And I'm going to enter the equation. So I'm going to clear this window. So as I hit my keys, you'll see a key press history here. So first, to get x to the fourth, x is right here, right? This is your variables. There's your x. Raise it to the fourth power, and then you have to arrow over to get out of the exponent. And then subtract, not minus. This is for a negative number and would cause us problems. So we are subtracting 8x raised to the third power. You see all the keys I've pressed to get there, and I arrow over to get back down on the main line, plus 15x squared, arrow over, plus 58x, and you want to, and then I don't have to go down because I didn't do an exponent, plus 34. Now I always suggest as you work through problems, you're going to see we may need to change the size of our window. And what I mean by that is currently not that one, that's table set. The window itself, the minimum x is -10, the maximum x is 10. So it's the left side is -10, the right side is +10. Y minimum is -10, Y max is +10. So we're only seeing from -10 to 10. And so when we go to the graph, this is what we see. We just say, okay, well, that might be good enough. We can see it looks like it's at -1, that we've got a 0, but we don't know about the rest of this. But let's just focus on that. We just need 1, right? I see a 0 there, so I'm going to verify it by going to the table. So I go to the table, and I do have it set up. So let me come back here. Here's table set. Notice my table starting at 0, it's changing by 1, and it's on auto. If you have different settings, maybe try changing up to this, and you'll be able to follow along. But you can change these as you go. And I saw it was at -1, so I want to arrow up. And yes, at -1, y is 0, so that definitely is a 0. So I'm going to, before I go too much further, I verified that I do have a 0 at x equals -1. So I'm going to come back here. X equals -1 is a 0. And remember, as a factor, we would add 1 to both sides. So we know that x plus 1 is a factor. The other thing we can see from this graph, we go back, is that has a multiplicity of 2. So that, again, we come back here, is I would call it a double factor. I don't know if that's the correct technical use, but I would call it that, a multiplicity of 2. So we're going to have x plus 2. So we found 2 of the basically 2 of the zeros. We need to find 2 more, and we know that 4 is the total that are available. But the graph helped us a lot on that. Now at the same time, I'm going to show you that is beneficial because we don't know, well, maybe was there another one at 11 or that's not on the screen. So another feature, if you go to zoom, it doesn't show up here, but there's an arrow here if there's something called zoom fit. Oftentimes this is very helpful. It will zoom to fit in the graph, most of the graph. Sometimes it zooms out too far. Let's see what happens. We definitely see more of the graph, but we lose a lot of the detail down here. So now we're going to manually adjust it. So I go to my window, and notice we're still going from -10 to 10. That's okay. But look at our Y goes from just above 0 to 18,000, almost 19,000. I think that's a little bit too much. So we can see more stuff. I'm going to change this to, and this, how do I know what to change it to? Well, since 18,000 is so big, I'm just guessing, but I think I will see more detail if I maybe have the Y go down to -100 so that I can see the x-axis, and let's just try 500. If this doesn't get you what you want, go back to the graph. Hey, we still see pretty much what's going on. X to the 4th, we see the end behaviors are both going to positive infinity. Here's this, and then it looks like probably here is we're going to get imaginary zeros. So looking at the graph tells us a lot and helps us go through this. Okay, but you may need to change the window, and zoom fit is a nice tool that we have. Get comfortable with being able to change that window. And again, if maybe we put in 1,000, that's still okay. There's no set, but just be able to see enough with also being able to see the detail, and then be able to switch over to the table, right, and be able to see the details there. And we see what's happening. We see it was positive, it hit 0, and then it was positive again, and exactly it's coming down, and it's just, as I say, kissing the x-axis. It comes down and goes back up. So that's a double 0, multiplicity of 2. So where do we go from here? Well, we can find the other factors, right, with synthetic division. So I'll go through, well, there's some examples, but what do we do? So this is 1, -8, +15, +58, and +34. And remember, with synthetic division, the first one comes down. That's 1. And when we get to 34, since -1 is a 0, we should end up with 0. Okay, -1 times -1 is -1. See, I learned I did better than I did in class. We add these together, so we've got -9. -1 times -9 is +9. That is 24, +24. I'll go ahead and put the plus. Maybe I'll put the plus here too. -1 times 24 minus 24. 4 from 4 is 4. 2 from 5 is 3. That's pretty good, and it's positive. So when I multiply it by -1, I get a -34. When I add these together, I get my 0. Okay, so what I've got is, remember, this was x to the 4th, so this number 1 here is now, well, let's just do it down here, is 1x to the 3rd minus 9x squared plus 24x, still plus 34. Okay, and then, but that's a cubic, so we haven't got it to what we need yet, right? But we know that x plus 1 is a double factor, so x minus 1 is also another, should work again, right? Let's go ahead and go with that one. So scan up, -1, and this time we have 1 for the x cubed minus 9 plus 24 plus 34. Synthetic division, bring the 1 down. That's a positive 1. Negative 1 times positive 1 is negative 1. Negative 9 plus negative 1 is negative 10. Negative times a negative is positive 10. There's 34. Negative 1 times 34 is negative 34, which is 0. So there's our two zeros. And this gives us the quadratic that's left over. X squared, 1x squared minus 10x plus 34. That 34 just doesn't go away, does it? Now we want to find this factor. We could try factoring it, but what we know from the graph, right, it's not a real 0. It doesn't cross the x-axis again. It's imaginary. So the way we would go about finding the imaginary zeros, and remember they're going to be a plus or minus, is using the quadratic formula. So x equals minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And I'll let you take a look at those, basically plug them in and go. What I wanted to demonstrate here was the use of the graphing calculator, and how you can, you need to be able to graph, you need to be able to look at the table and adjust the table to what you need. You need to be able to adjust the graph window so you can see what you need to see. But do it for everything. Again, in class they had us just say, okay, rationals, they're zero theorem, and so how many are there? We could have gone through that, but notice we didn't really need to. We could have said, okay, alternating signs, so here's a positive and here's a negative. That's 1, 2. Notice there's two positive factors. So x plus 1. 1, 2. Yeah, so the sign changed from positive, negatives. There's 1, there's another 1, and then it doesn't change again. So we do have that. Anyway, keep working through things. Again, you may sign off if you're good with what's the graphing calculator. For those of you who maybe either don't have a graphing calculator yet or would like to use a different version, the only one I can really demonstrate for you is NumWorks. So I will pull that up. You can go online and try it for free. You can also download it to an emulator to your computer. You can also go to the app stores for either Apple or Android to download it to a tablet or a phone. So I'll just show you real quickly how we can go about doing this. I'll shorten it up here. We'll go OK. So we're going to add an element. Let's go ahead and do functions. X. So we're going to just enter this x to the 4th. And that one, there's an x to the y. So whenever I want to put in an exponent, I have to use this one. And again, just like the other one, I have to arrow down to get back to the main line. This one's nice. It only has one negative, so you never get messed up. It'll figure out whether it's the negative or the subtraction. Your x variable key is right here. And then we're going to put that to the 3rd power, arrow over, plus 15, x, oops, not yet. Let's go back, put in my x first, and then now I can arrow up there and put in my square, and then arrow down, plus 15, x, and then plus 34. Now what I want you to see is when I go to graph this one, what I like about the NumWorks, I just hit enter, I'm going to plot the graph, so I come down here. It will, it basically does a zoom fit on the first time. So it does a pretty good job. See, I didn't have to go, what am I seeing? But it's a little bit further out than maybe I want to go. I can see here. So what I can do is I'm already in a mode I can zoom to that, and I can see I've got a minimum. I've got a 0 at x equals -1. So it finds it relatively easily for me. I can also go up to the table just like I can on a TI-84, and I can see now it doesn't arrow up. I think you have to actually enter in the values, or you can set the intervals. So let's start maybe at negative. We think it's -1, so let's start at -10. Why not? End at 10 and step by 1. So if we do that, again, each calculator works differently, so it depends on what you're using, but there it is. The same thing is be able to get to the table and say, okay, when x is -1, I verified I've got a 0. So the table, the graph, it all helps. And even here, if you want, you can go to calculate, navigate, so we can change, we can zoom in or we can zoom out. Maybe let's do the plus and we'll zoom in a little bit, but this is nice. See, I can just kind of move it. So I like this one. Again, it's $99 through the same website. You can order it. If you're going to plan on using it, you need the handheld version, so you've got to order it quickly if you don't already have it. So it's an option over the TI-84, but use which ones you want to use, and then do the practice. So get yourselves ready, review these things, walk through the steps, get all your homework done, do the reviews both in MyMathLab, also in Canvas. You'll be well prepared, work them forward and backwards. These are the things you need to understand. Just to let you know, it will be helpful if you can sketch a graph, but it's not required for this one. We have you do that in MyMathLab because it's helpful to build understanding, but yeah, just be able to do the graphs. All right, thank you very much. And let's end it here.